Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me. I'm really excited to be here and to present to you the Ripple Effect, Connecting People and Nature. This is Norway's digital contribution to the London Design Biennale 2021, and it's organised by Design and Architecture Norway, or DOGA, as you probably know them, with the support of the Royal Norwegian Embassy in London, and of course, the London Design Biennale team. For those of you that don't know me, my name's Amy Frierson. I'm a journalist and editor based in London, and I'm also editor-at-large for Design. I'm here to take you on a digital tour through the projects that feature as part of the Ripple Effect and to introduce you to some of the talented people behind them. We're going to hear from each participant, and we're also going to hear from Alice Macdonald of Project Everyone, the organisation responsible for the spectacular forest installation that forms the entrance to the Biennale. And then at the end, we'll bring everyone together for a panel discussion to explore some of the themes discussed in more detail. First, it seems appropriate to talk a little bit about the journey we've been on to get here. As I'm sure you all know, this year's Biennale was originally scheduled to take place in 2020. Like most events, it had to be postponed by a year due to the ongoing crisis caused by COVID-19. We're here and now in 2021. Many events are still being affected by the pandemic, but the fact that the Biennale is here, it's open, it's a really incredible achievement and a real testament to the will of the team behind it. Personally, it's the first proper event I've attended in a long time, and it felt really great to be back. Of course, not everything's back to normal yet, which is one of the reasons why we're here today virtually rather than in person. But it's really exciting to be exploring like this new exhibition format. And I think this gives us a real chance to delve a little bit deeper into the projects and hear a bit more about the ideas behind them than we might have done otherwise. So let's start by talking about the ripple effect. It's an idea that's really strongly linked with the Biennale theme, resonance, this idea of resonance with other people and with our natural environment. In Norway, that connection to nature is perhaps stronger than in many other places in the world. You know, part of that comes from its unique landscape. There are, forests, mountains, lakes, fjords, so much nature on the doorstep. And specifically, it's a place where water and the ocean is never very far away. With that in mind, the four projects that form part of this exhibition that we're going to sort of be showing you today really explore that connection with water and the idea that we can live in resonance rather than dissonance with nature. They all sort of promote this concept of inclusive design, this idea of accessibility for people of all ages, genders, races, and abilities, which has been sort of really central to the Norwegian design sensibility and is part of this Universal Design Action Plan being enforced at a government level. Designing with inclusion and the environment in our minds can create positive ripple effects for individuals and society, for our well-being and for our future. It's an approach that can help us to create safer, sustainable, and more resilient cities, and it can resonate at a local and a global scale. So to kick things off, here's a sort of an intro to give you a quick look at all the four projects that we're featuring today. So hopefully that's whet all of your appetites and you're keen to hear some more. So to start, we're going to sort of start our tour on the southern tip of Norway, where we can find Under, which is Europe's first underwater restaurant. Designed by architect Snøhetta, it's a project that had a lot of media attention when it first opened 2 years ago. But what we'd like to show you today is that it's more than just a story of pioneering architecture, which also it is as well. But there's also a sort of story here about marine research, sustainable harvesting, and community engagement. This is a building that does all it can to have a positive impact on the people, businesses, and environment that make up its surroundings. So we're going to hear from Stig and Kathrine Ubostad, who are the entrepreneurs behind Under. And we're going to hear from Rune Grosdal, who's the senior architect at Snøhetta, who are going to share the story of this incredible building.
Hello and welcome to Under. My name is Kathrine Ubostad and I'm here today with my husband, Stig. And together with Stig's brother Gaute and our sister-in-law Helle, we are the owners and founders of Under. Today we're here to give you a bit of the who and where and why of the project, whilst Rune from Snøhetta will go more into the design. This is our home region. This is where we both grew up. And this is where we knew that we wanted to settle down and create our way of living. I reckon it's a gift being able to grow up in such a fantastic place. It's surrounded by blue nature and has a really rich story. This is quite a remote location, mostly known for nature, rough weather conditions, and being the southern cape of Norway. However, we believe that we live in the center of the universe. Rich marine life, small tidal changes, beautiful surroundings, and kind and hospitable people. Actually, a perfect location for an underwater restaurant. To us, everything was right. It involved our core values that we use throughout our businesses of being curious, passionate, and local. We live in a very small village, and we're used to taking care of each other. So at early stage, we made a decision to use local resources and realize the project in a sustainable way throughout the whole project. And Stig was the project leader when it comes to the building. So I guess you can say a bit about that.
At the early stage, we divided the project into three main pillars. One of them was architecture, the other one, marine biology, the third one, gastronomy. The architecture itself was mainly decided or made by nature itself. It's angled and curved, so the waves can pass over it rather than stopping the waves and the currents. So withdrawn from land side, so it will the water can move freely around it. It was built on a floating barge. It was a submersible barge, and it's free floating. until it was moved over, lifted off by a big crane and sunken to the seabed.
It was an exciting day.
It was a fantastic day. It was a bit nervous, all of us. We had a focus on using local resources throughout the project. For example, the chairs we're sitting in now is wood made nearby by Hamran, who's a local carpentry. The wood was harvested just a few kilometers from here, taken up to Hamran, around 20 kilometers from here, and made to these fantastic chairs designed by Snøhetta. We are very proud of the team working here. It's an international environment consisting of, for the moment, 23 people and having 14 different nations.
And most of them come from really big cities.
They do.
So I think it's fantastic that they move over here and stay in this really small, remote area, a really small village. And it becomes sort of like a family. They often say that working at Under is not something that you do, it's something that you are, really. It's extremely talented people and passionate, just like us. And
passion, that's is part of our soul. Most of the people working here is joining harvesting and foraging around in the surroundings. We start off early in spring, collecting small herbs, plants, and using them to use in wintertime. So it's a circle we are all staying in. Spring and summer is for harvest and foraging, and then we can use it in wintertime again.
Just like our forefathers did when they lived here. Yeah. So the chefs has been around also collecting stories from people that live here and has passed on knowledge throughout generations, which is something that they'll experience here at Under.
That's also what we have seen for the marine biology. Seasons is something we appreciate. The Nordic seas is dark, a bit mystic. Not many people know of the North Sea. But we have seasons here just as we have over water. When the season, in springtime, when the grass gets green and getting colorful on top, just the same happens on the water.
To this project, the Under project, design has been essential. It's been an essential part of the experience that the guests have when they come in. The guest experience at Under is about being embraced by the water. You come in here and the door closes and all of a sudden it's quiet or almost quiet. There's a music play that's being played, who is specially designed. And the design of Under sort of tells you where you're at. And it plays a big part together with the story that we tell, the plate and all the cutlery and the tables and the chairs, and of course the food that's being presented. Everything tells a story here at Under, and the design sort of gives us a good room to tell that story. And I think to us, Under became something incredible. The journey that we were in and sort of the bubble when we were in it, because of all the people, the designers, the architects, the musicians, everybody made just the project so wonderful. And I think it was when Snøhetta came into the project that we realized how big the potential of the restaurant was, how many people we could actually reach. I think when we launched the project in October 2019, wasn't it?
No, 17.
17, sort of.
Mm-hmm. Times go fast.
Yes, when you're having fun.
Yes.
With some rendered pictures. Just in a few days, they had a digital reach of 1.2 billion, I think.
At that time.
At that time, yeah. And now, of course, even more. We're very proud of Under and everything that it has become for us and many others. And now we're excited to hear from Runa, what he has to say. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Rune Garsdal and I'm an architect in Snøhetta, and I've worked in Snøhetta since 2000. I was the project leader for this project under. The idea for this project came via the two brothers, Stig and Ubostad, who came to us in September 2016 to fulfill the dream of building Europe's first underwater restaurant. In March 2019, the restaurant opened and it has already got its first Michelin star. It was with great respect we started the task. None of us has built underwater before. Luckily, we had great people on board, local companies with experience from offshore industry and tunnel building. We started the design process via a workshop trying to find a strong concept. As a result of this workshop, we moved the given plot laying close by the client's hotel to a new plot just 100 meters away. But this new plot was much more linked to the nature. The fastest and easiest way from above to under is a straight line. In this case, the answer became a tube. We created a water binocular. We want the building to blend into the nature as an artificial reef. The rough concrete facade facilitates seaweed and shells to grow on the building. Formwork of wooden plank are used to shape the concrete surface. The exterior is made of a half-meter thick rough concrete that must withstand the water pressure, large waves, and wind. We did some wave tests as a part of the design phase, which gave us crucial information about how to shape the building. The interior is warm, soft, and safe, an exciting and welcoming atmosphere where the guests experiences a journey from above to under. The outside and inside are contrasts, but still two sides of the same form and shape. Under consists of four main materials: concrete, textile, raw steel, and solid oiled oak. Under is about movement, above water level and under water level. Plus 3 meters, we have the entrance, and foyer and wardrobe. The size is approximately 60 square meters. Minus 1 meter, we have a mezzanine, a bar, a handicap toilet, and technical rooms. This is 135 square meters. Minus 5 meters, we have the restaurant itself, with open kitchen and back rooms, service area, public toilets, about 300 square meters, and you can have 80 to 100 people inside. The large acrylic window facing the sea is 11 by 3.8 meters tall and has a thickness of 25 centimeters. Total area for the building is nearly 500 square meters. The length is 34 meters and the width is 12 meters. Safety, escape route, and orientation is very important in such a building where most of the building are under the water. Some guests are concerned about whether they will feel uncomfortable staying under the water. Using a simple and easy to understand concept, intuitive design language make it easy for the visitor to understand the building and to feel safe. As a visitor, you enter the building upstairs. Here you can look down through the sloping volume where a long continuous staircase brings you all the way to the seabed. If you look up back again when you have reached the bottom, you understand where you come from. You immediately read how to leave the building again. Midway on the journey down, there is a mezzanine level 1 meter below the water surface. Here you find a narrow but tall window. Through this window, you can experience what's over and under the water line at the same time. This makes you far more aware of the journey from above to under. The big window at the seabed is the magnet of this project. 11 meter wide and 3.8 meter tall. They like going through the 5 meter of sea into the restaurant room. That is where the term under, wonder, miracle really makes sense. It's simply impossible to find the right words to describe the feeling of standing by the large window and looking up towards the sea surface where the sunlight strikes and penetrates through the sea. It's truly magical. If the wind makes waves or the rain hammer on the water surface appears as a chandelier where the prisms change according to the weather conditions. Artificial lighting should not compete with the nature daylight condition. No elements of the inside should be reflected in the large window and destroy the view out to the water. A building like this needs very good acoustic conditions, both because of its fine dining situation, but also because it's underwater. We did not want any echo or submarine-like sounds. We choose to overcompensate with acoustic panels. We tested many different types, but both the inner shape, which is curved, and our wish to have a warm atmosphere was challenging. We ended up with a custom-made soft cell panels from the Danish company Kvadrat. We wanted the textile to strengthen with travel down. Therefore, the panels have a gradient color palette, going from pink at the entrance level down to deep blue-green at the seabed. During the project, it was decided to make a custom-made furniture designed by Snøhetta and produced by the local company Hamran. They also did all the woodwork in the project in solid natural oak locally, and the furniture is produced by the same material. Snøhetta was involved in graphic design and branding. We came up with the name Under, and also we did the logo for the project. Proper marketing, right connections, and right timing is very important. The first illustration of Under received enormous attention all over the world. We have never ever received so much attention for anything we have done before. It has been an adventure to be a part of Under's design team. I really want to thank the Ubostad family, who has the courage to carry out this project and that they trusted us to do this together with them. Thank you for your attention.
Well, I think we can all agree that's an incredibly special project. Next, we're traveling to the west of Norway, to the UNESCO protected fjords of, and I apologize for my bad Norwegian pronunciation, I want to say Flom and Gudvangen, where we can find a project that really demonstrates the power of inclusive design. So Legacy of the Fjords is an electric-powered sightseeing boat that is not only accessible to all, but it's also incredibly sensitive to the fragile ecosystems of the fjord landscape. I can really see this project, this vessel, becoming a kind of industry standard, like a sort of a template that is replicated around the world, you know, and a sort of model for sustainable water tourism in the future. We're going to hear from Helle Bakkeland, commercial manager for the Fjords, which is a company that took the brave decision to commission this boat. And then also from Torstein, an industrial designer from Brødrene Aa Shipyard, who engineered the design that made it possible.
My name is Helle Bakkeland. I'm the commercial manager for the Fjords. I'm standing here today with the ship designer Torstein from Brødrene Aa. Like all the best ideas, it's simple. Like the most successful design ideas, it's focused on the end user. With Legacy of the Fjords, together with her two sister ships, we wanted to launch a new type of vessels to give all passengers a unique experience. We started with the end user and thought, how can they all, regardless of mobility, access different decks? How can they enjoy the best possible views without having to negotiate stairs? The answer from the designer was a pathway. One way you enter at the gangway on the lower deck and make your own way round and up the ship, finally climbing to the top deck without ever having to actually climb. It maximizes the views, providing 360 degrees access and deck space, giving all our passengers enough room to have their own front row view at the ship's railings. The first vessel, Vision of the Fjords, was the starting point of a journey that has transformed our company, the Fjords, and the way in which visitors enjoy the unique natural beauty of Western Norwegian landscape. The Fjords runs today a fleet of 6 tourism and transport vessels in Western Norway, providing access to our most breathtaking treasured fjord landscapes. Of these, Nærøyfjorden is the jewel of the crown. This UNESCO World Heritage waterway demonstrates what nature can achieve at her most powerful, playful, and artistic. Colossal rock walls rise up from the crystal clear water, closing in on the ships that pass beside them, while the eagles circle, the seals splash, the waterfalls cascade, and the trees hang on for their life on the sides of the mountains, towering up to pierce the sky. Summer here is green, alive, and bathed in light. The winter is blue, white, and majestically serene. And all this rare and spectacular wonder is barely touched by the hand of man. The Fjords want to keep it that way. A key part of our design brief was to create a tourist vessel that protected the unique landscape it provides access to. We wanted to deliver the maximum passenger experience with the absolute minimal environmental impact. To this end, Legacy of the Fjords is constructed from carbon fiber to reduce weight and optimize power consumption. The deck design is also an enabler here, as it means we don't need to install any heavy and expensive elevators. The catamaran hull minimizes the wake and therefore protects the fragile shoreline from the wave impact erosion. Inside, we use only biodegradable packaging and minimizing the use of plastic. Even our disposable cutlery is made from wood. Legacy of the Fjord is all electric. No noise, no vibration, no emission, nothing to get in the way of the unique sensory overload provided by our beautiful fjords. Sharing the same design as the vision and future of the fjords, Legacy loads its power from a floating power dock, which also receives the wastewater from the ship to avoid any discharges into the fjord. We wanted every one of our 400 passengers on this 42-meter-long ship to get closer to the fjord's nature than ever before. The deck pathway puts them in the perfect position to do so, while the sweeping windows in the panoramic lounges also brings the outside in. By eradicating mechanical engine noise, we can greatly enhance the sensory experience. Our passengers can hear the nature around them, really immerse themselves as the ship glides silently through the water. As a result, the only sounds on board in Nærøyfjorden are the sharp intakes of breath as the visitors from around the world gaze up, down, and around in Ave. This helps those of limited vision focus on the sounds on the fjords, giving them an experience it's impossible to achieve on a conventional powered vessel. They, like our other guests, can be at one with the natural landscape. So it's good for the environment, fantastic for the passengers of any age and mobility, and shows how inclusive, sustainable design in resonance with nature provides positive ripple effect for people, the environment, and thankfully for such a significant investment, excellent for business. It has been an exciting journey, but we haven't reached the destination as of yet. We have now 3 sister vessels, Vision, Future, and Legacy of the Fjords, which takes us one step further on the route to optimal, environmentally friendly, accessible, and sustainable tourist experience. The Fjord is looking to expand its fleet with more of these incredible vessels, while also creating a new paradigm for the ship operators around the world who are interested in providing a responsible, accessible travel for their passengers. We want to inspire a new generation of vessels in the same way as we and everyone that travels on our ships is inspired by the beauty of the fjords. That's enough for me. I have the designer with me and I will hand over the word to him, Torstein.
Thank you, Helle. Yes, my name is Torstein Aa. I work as a designer at the shipyard Brødrene Aa. We specialize in creating energy-efficient fast ferries and sightseeing vessels. We also have a great focus on designing high-end products with a high quality. When we started designing what became the seaside design, which is the vision, future, and legacy of the fjords, we started with the design principles that Helle talked about. It should be a highly environmentally friendly vessel, large focus on universal design, and it should also be eye-catching and be an experience in itself. So we experimented with a lot of different ideas, and one of the key problems we tried to solve best as possible was this universal design. So one of the more radical versions was what ultimately became Legacy of the Fjords, the seaside concept, that we have these ramps that go on each side of the vessel. This makes an extremely playful design that makes it possible for everyone to move around with ease. So with this concept, we saw that it was maybe a very radical design, but we saw that the value that we got from these ramps was so valuable that we knew this would be a good success. At Brødrene Aa, we have, as I said, the focus with energy efficiency and designing for the new green shift that's happening. So we have put a lot of energy into specializing in electrical power systems and also hybrids, and now we're also looking into hydrogen. So Legacy of the Fjords, it's a fully battery electric vessel. One thing is that this is being powered by environmentally friendly hydroelectric power in the Norwegian fjords, but it also creates a much better sightseeing experience for all travelers. You can be on the roof of Legacy of the Fjords, and all you hear is the wind and the birds chirping and maybe some waterfalls nearby. And it's a totally unique experience. So we are very excited about the seaside product, and everything that we learn from this product we also bring forward in all our other designs. So universal design has always been a key design principle that we work on at Brødrene Aa. So this concept came out of trying to create something that was better from the environment and better for all travelers with the universal design. And I think it would not have been possible if we didn't have universal design and circular design as a key design principle from the start.
I hope you all enjoyed that. I feel like that's a project where everything has been thought of. There's so many great things and so many great aspects to talk about. Our next project is a bit smaller in scale, but not necessarily small in ambition. The Soria Moria sauna in Telemark in the east of Norway is a project that shows how small interventions can have a huge impact on those around them in a positive way. It's a project that not only brings new people to this town, but has also brought the local community closer together. And the inclusive nature of this project goes right back to the design process. Rather than being developed by a single designer, this project was a collaboration from a group of different creators from different fields. And it's resulted in a project that is so much richer and sort of has this real sense of drama and imagination to it. And so to tell the story of this project, we have David Fjords of Feste Landscape and Architecture. He's gonna tell us a little bit more.
My name is David Fjords and I'm an architect at Feste Landscape and Architecture. The project I'll be presenting is the Soria Moria Sauna. The project was developed by a Nordic design team consisting of an architect, landscape architect, a lighting designer and an artist. And I think the interdisciplinary aspect was key in developing a unique project which sprung from the site and connected to the surrounding landscape. Now, the sauna itself is located on the western banks of the Bandak Lake at the end of the Telemark Canal. A 105-kilometre long canal stretches from the southern coast of Norway deep into the mountainous heart of Telemark. When it was completed in the late 1800s, it was referred to as the eighth wonder of the world and was considered a significant historic attraction in the region. In recent years, however, visiting numbers have declined, and our client, the Telemark Canal Regional Park, wished to encourage a sort of rediscovery through the use of architecture, art and lighting design through a large-scale tourism attraction project called the Tales of a Waterway. Now, the Soria Moria Sauna marks the first of 6 projects to be completed along the canal. So it's basically one of those dream briefs. How can design be utilized to highlight the inherent qualities of the local landscape and traditions? How can a structure facilitate social interaction and inclusivity and connect people both with nature and themselves? Although the project is modest in terms of size and budget, the client was keen to achieve a sustainable project available to everyone. Now, sustainability can take on many forms. It can be high or low tech, it can be large or small scale, it can be incredibly complex, but also quite simple. And our aim was finding a way of bringing people together and creating a meaningful experience to offer a sort of antidote to our busy, fast-paced lives and shift the focus. Now, this idea of achieving a sense of calm by connecting with nature might, maybe especially to Norwegians, sound like a bit of a cliche, but deep down, I think most of us can agree there is actually something deeper to it. And with the site surrounded by such dramatic landscape, we had a really great starting point. But the challenging part was striking that right balance in how you achieve a successful interaction between the built and the unbuilt, between architecture and nature. And with a number of people visiting the Telemark Canal in decline, we knew we had to think differently. At times, I think it can be necessary to introduce a new element to appreciate a place or a landscape in a new way. I suppose it's really about giving people a subtle reminder of the beauty around them. And I think subtlety is really the key word. You want to add something in order to enhance the experience, not to take the focus away from it. And a way of achieving this is referencing through design the inherent qualities of the surrounding landscape, not just the physical material landscape, but also the more elusive and immaterial aspects. Now, the area around the Bandak Lake is steeped in folklore and history, and we really wanted to include these elements along with references to local building techniques and materials in our design. So the characteristic silhouette of the Soria Moria sauna is an architectural interpretation of the steep mountainsides surrounding the Bandak Lake. The wooden shingle cladding is inspired by local building techniques going back hundreds and hundreds of years. And we aim to use as much locally sourced timber as possible. Local contractors oversaw the build. And whilst shingle-clad facades and roofs are no longer that common in Norway, it was really interesting to see how keen our builders were to embrace these old techniques and methods. We saw the project as an opportunity to pass on a piece of cultural heritage. Integrated in the wooden cladding are golden shingles, a reference to local folklore, to the mythical and to the outlandish. Soria Moria is the name of a well-known Norwegian fairy tale about trolls and princesses and a young man's quest in search of a hidden golden castle, where I guess the castle sort of becomes a symbol for perfect happiness itself. So the structure itself contains a sauna for around 15 people, a changing room and a covered seating area for taking in the views. The project is constructed on stilts along a small inlet to allow for bathing in the lake and is accessible to all. The Sigurdsjevja Inlet is a precise and characteristic landscape formation, and the design of the walkway leading out to the sauna aims to emphasize this feature. Now, lighting was also an integral part of the overall design, and I mentioned subtlety earlier. Our aim was to add as little light as strictly necessary. We wanted to invite people in, but not to interfere with the peaceful, almost mythical experience of the landscape. Now, cultivating the quality of the darkness, a quality that's becoming more and more scarce, was in our view really important. We were also fascinated by how the structure visually changed throughout the day and how the sunlight reflected the golden shingled and then taken on a completely different appearance at night. So inside, the ritual of taking a sauna merges with the experience of the landscape. We wanted to design a sociable space where people could meet and interact with each other in an alternative setting to everyday life. At the same time, it also needed to be a place for quiet contemplation and somewhere to be by yourself. The large corner window is angled away from the local town to frame a view of untouched nature. The materials and detailing aim to achieve a sense of calm and simplicity. When you are in this space, nobody needs anything from you. Nobody wants anything from you. This is your time. Finally, the Soria Moria sauna aims to celebrate the amalgamation of architecture, landscape, folklore, and cultural heritage in an inclusive and sustainable design. The sauna has been well received by both locals and visitors alike, to the extent, in fact, that I struggled to get a booking when I tried to visit it. Now, perhaps this can be seen as an example of the ripple effects of design, how this sort of subtle, understated approach to design can still help generate experiences, boost tourism and local economy. What really is great about the project, though, is the sense of ownership and pride that the locals have shown for the sauna. With weekly sauna drop-in sessions, people from the community can meet and have a shared experience. Now, having grown up in Telemark myself, it's really encouraging to see that positive effect that the project has had on the local community. Ultimately, the interdisciplinary collaboration between artist, lighting designer, landscape architect, and architect from across the Nordic countries was key in creating a project that is both unique and very much grounded in the landscape. Thank you very much.
I think that's a project that will really strike a chord with a lot of people, especially in the sort of time when so many of us have been kind of stuck indoors for so long, the idea of being able to connect with nature in such a simple and sort of beautiful setting is incredibly enticing. Our final project we're going to have a look at is really sort of challenging the assertion that technology is distracting us from distracting us or distancing us from nature. The Blue Eye underwater drone, developed as part of the Brim Explorer sightseeing service, allows people to explore underwater, the marine environment, without actually having to get wet themselves. It's sort of really thinking about opening up this world to a wider audience. You can basically navigate this drone using a smart device, so you can get a real sense of what it's like to explore underwater with minimal disturbance to the environment. Or there's also sort of videos being produced by this that are available online, and also lots of other uses for it. We only have a short amount of time to show this project, but I hope it's enough to give you a good insight into it. A great project, that one, and incredible congratulations to the Brim Explorer team. It's something that looks like a whole lot of fun, and a very responsible project too. Next up, we're going to hear from Alice Macdonald of Project Everyone. So Project Everyone is the organisation that worked with Biennale curator Es Devlin to create the installation at the heart of the Biennale's exhibition at Somerset House. I'm sure those in the audience that are based in London will have already taken a walk through the temporary forest, made up of 400 trees. Those of you that haven't and have only seen it in pictures, or if it's your first time hearing about it, I can tell you that at its heart is a space called the Global Goals Pavilion. And it's a physical manifestation of the United Nations Global Goals for Sustainable Development, which is a sort of 17-point plan for eradicating poverty, inequality, climate change, really sort of tackling all the issues, the sort of big global issues that are facing us as a planet. And these goals are very much at the heart of the Biennale's ambitions, this idea of questioning whether design can help us to build a better world. So I'm going to hand over now to Alice, who is hopefully with us live and is going to tell us more.
Yeah, hi, nice to be here. I thought my presentation feels a little bit incongruous in the middle after all that amazing design straight from Norway, but I hope it is kind of apt for the reasons that Amy touched on, that I think the answer is yes, design can very much help us design a better world, and the Sustainable Development Goals, as I'll come on to inform quite a lot of the projects, in fact. And it's also very apt because Norway is a real leader on the Sustainable Development Goals, and I'll come to that in a minute. I just wanted to show you before I kind of kick off the forest being built in action. I think we'll just show a short video of that to bring it to life for those of you who aren't able to visit it in real life. Just play that. Okay, I was going to play the time lapse, but this is a view from a drone of the forest from above. So as you can see, it is made up of 400 trees, as Amy mentioned. They are all indigenous to the UK and Northern Europe, and in the middle you can see those 17 pillars, which each represent one of the 17 Sustainable Development Goals. So I'll let some of that imagery play. Just to say, Project Everyone is a not-for-profit organisation who uses communications and creativity to drive progress towards the goals. We were co-founded by Richard Curtis, the film director, who you might know from other British treasures like Notting Hill, Kate Garvey and Gail Galley. And our motto is really to make things happen, you have to make things. So we make films, we make content, and this is probably our most ambitious project to date. And it's the first time that we did it in the UK. And this project has been in the making for 2 years. It was first conceived, obviously, pre-COVID. We met Ez Devlin, who many of you will know, who is the curator of the Design Biennale and is a brilliant artist and designer. The inspiration from it came very much from the fact that Ez was told that when Somerset House was first built under the Enlightenment principles, it was forbidden to plant anything in the courtyard, trees in particular. So the challenge then was to really challenge that human dominance over nature by bringing a forest into the centre of Somerset House. The second inspiration was very much the Sustainable Development Goals. And as Amy mentioned, there are 17 goals. They span everything from climate action, life underwater, to peace and justice, tackling no poverty, gender equality. But why they are so important is that they apply to everybody everywhere. Previously, the Millennium Development Goals just applied to the least developed countries, but these apply as much in the UK and Norway as they might do in other countries. And the other point is very much that they are interlinked, that they recognise that you cannot achieve climate action without tackling poverty, and you can't achieve any of the goals unless you tackle gender equality, for example. And Ez was inspired by those goals as well, and that is how that collaboration came apart. So as I mentioned, we worked with the landscape architect Philip Jaffa and Scottscape to identify the appropriate trees. There's been a lot of care, as anyone who's been in the UK knows. It's been scorching hot here, so we've had to maintain them. The birdscape, as you walk through the forest, there is a birdscape playing that was curated by Brian Eno, the musician with the British Library Sound Archive. And as you arrive at the centre of the forest, each of those goals, each of those pillars has a fact and a quote related to the goals on them, whether it's Michelle Obama on the power of women to change the world, Malala on the importance of quality education, or a bit of an anomaly, Bjork on the power of renewable energy. What we tried to do was inspire people with kind of what does it actually mean to achieve these goals, and if you can get there, then do have a look around those. The 17th pillar and goal 17 is actually partnerships for the goals, and that was very much the last pillar goal intentionally, when they were agreed that we can't achieve any of them unless we all work together. And at the last pillar, we actually formed a collaboration with Google Arts and Culture Lab to ask people to record their message for change, and those are replayed back into the forest. And we're actually working with Google Arts and Culture Lab so people around the world can add their voice as well, and we're exploring how we can take that as an artistic installation potentially to the UN General Assembly in September, which is kind of the annual review moment for the goals. Just a point on sustainability, and as people have touched on previously, it's obviously fundamental to the achievement of the goals, and it has been to this project. And we've worked incredibly hard with sustainability experts, Beautiful A Wonder, to integrate that in the whole kind of production of the forest. There was a really thorough audit of the supply chains from a number of angles and in the actual creation of it. So everything in the forest, or pretty much everything, will be recycled, reused or regenerated as biofuel. A lot of people have said, well, what happens to the trees? All the trees will be replanted in London boroughs. So in Southwark and South London, and Islington in the north of London. We've worked with local authorities and grassroots organisations there, and they will be replanted working with the Queen's Green Canopy Initiative, which is an initiative to plant lots of trees next year to mark the Queen's Platinum Jubilee. So we very much hope that the forest will continue living and breathing in different pockets of London, and we are also exploring where else we might take the pillars, whether it's to the Climate Summit in Glasgow or to the UN itself. And I think, you know, the forest is beautiful. We've had a lot of brilliant visitors so far. We've had a lot of children coming in, learning about the goals and sustainability. But we really hope, and why we did it, was to drive awareness, and culture and arts and culture has such an important role to do that in. And why is that needed more than ever? Because the goals are off track. COVID could mean, for example, 120 million more people pushed into extreme poverty. We've seen extreme poverty falling over the last 2 decades. This is the first time it's likely to go up. And we do believe this is the only globally agreed plan by 193 member states. Often say, when you're trying to get governments and leaders to do something, they've actually already committed to a lot of it underneath the SDGs. So we hope it serves as a reminder, but also that it helps people think about how in their own lives they can help advance and progress to the goals. And all of the projects we've seen are amazing examples of how that can happen, and that is really inspiring. I think you could put a goals badge on each one of those and they're making a real difference. I think also, just to touch on Norway, there was a report last week that came out that ranked Norway 7th in achieving progress towards the global goals. I think number 1 was Finland, but a huge amount of countries and people all over the world are really working together to make progress towards it. So we kind of hope that, and I should have mentioned the Norwegian Prime Minister is also an official advocate for the Sustainable Development Goals, along with my boss, Richard Curtis. So, we've got 9 years left to achieve these goals, and we hope projects like this reach different audiences and different ways to inspire them to take action. So we hope in a small way this project can cheer people up, engage them in different things, but can also help play a small role in driving progress. So I'll stop there. Thank you very much.
Thanks so much, Alice. That was fantastic. And maybe I can just ask you as well, obviously with the sort of nature of the Biennale being so focused on design and this idea of what designers, what design can do to sort of tackle these issues. For everyday designers, architects kind of coming to see this exhibition, what message do you hope they sort of take away from this? These are big ambitions, like where do they start?
I guess I think for a lot of architects and designers, a lot of their work would already fit into the Sustainable Development Goals. And so we hope, we're aware that lots of people don't know about these goals, and we kind of see them as a kind of signifier that all of us are working together to achieve them, whether that's explicit or not. And we really hope, one thing that's been really interesting is how people can forge common connections through the goals. So we've hosted in the past a kind of an annual initiative with the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation to bring kind of leaders across the world together, particularly young leaders. And what's been really interesting is when the different partnerships have been formed across activists and artists and businesses to actually find ways to kind of bring their different skills to different challenges. And, design, and there's a pillar on innovation in there. Plays such an important role. Goal 11 is sustainable cities, and that's just an obvious example of how if we don't design our buildings right, if they're not climate neutral and can help us get to zero carbon, then we're not going to achieve the goal. So I think design and architecture is such an important part of how we achieve it. So I hope people coming, will look at it and be inspired to think even more about what they can do to achieve the goals.
Yeah, definitely. And I imagine as well, one of the things that's kind of emerged from what you've been speaking about, and also sort of through these projects, is kind of, it seems the real importance is that relationship between not just sort of top-down guidance from government, but also kind of ground-up movement from people that both have to exist in equal measure in order for change to really happen.
Yeah, exactly. I think, one of the few positives we've seen over the last year has been kind of citizen action, people coming together to support each other. But, in the midst of a pandemic after the murder of George Floyd, people, were standing up against racism and injustice. We've seen it with the Me Too movement. We've seen it all the time with Fridays for Future and young people. So it has to be both. And, individual action is so important, but it has to go in hand with what is the big political changes we need that are going to make those things meaningful. And I think, I was just thinking back, I think it was in Singapore where I was talking to Conor Alsika, who just got a really interesting example of how you can build houses that can be just put in temporarily when you've got real issues of homelessness, for example. So I also think with the SDGs, it's how do you find those points of collaborations and share experiences across countries and different environments to find the things that help kind of progress really to advance. So yeah, it's really important, and that was part of the inspiration for Voices for Change, to really ask people, not what you want your leaders to do, but what do you want to see happen, and therefore thinking also about what can your role be in achieving that.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Well, on that note, let's kind of pick up a kind of panel discussion with all of our speakers from today. They're all here joining us. And so we're going to kind of talk through all the projects. I think I should say that if you have any particular questions as an audience, if you have particular questions for anyone, please feel free to post them in the chat box, and I'll see if we can kind of bring them in. There's quite a lot of us here, so I think it probably makes sense that I won't just start firing out questions for everyone, because I think it might be a bit of a bun fight. So I think maybe we'll start with Under, with Stig and Kathrine and Rune. One thing I think is a really interesting kind of thing to sort of discuss about Under, you know, and maybe sort of unique to this project above the others, is, you know, this is a project that had such a kind of global interest. You know, you said that sort of 1.2 billion people had sort of seen the projects almost, you know, when you first like launched these visuals. So how do you kind of allow this project to kind of maintain a balance between supporting a local community, you know, as well as, you know, rather than allowing tourism to take over? Like, how do you kind of maintain that balance between it being a sort of successful project, but also not overtaking its setting?
I'll just check down. There's echo here.
Oh, got some echoes going on.
Me and Kathrine is sitting in the same room, so it's quite different. For maintaining the balance, we are of course a fine dining restaurant, so for the tourism wise, it's very small scale. At a normal evening, we have 40 guests, maximum of 40 guests for the moment. So for maintaining the tourism, or the mass tourism in our area isn't what we want to achieve either. For the balancing of tourism, I think we need to move away from the mass tourism and move over to to a different kind of tourism, not where people come into the cruise lines and the big masses. So for in the sustainable way, I think one of the most important things we do is using local resources and being a part of our local system. We know the farmer, we know the fisherman, we know where to forage, and we observe it, and we are in close contact also with the National Oceanic Institutes to discuss whether for the season what we can do or not do. I hope that's a small answer to the question.
Absolutely. And then in terms of yeah, I mean, it really sounds like this idea of operation, how the building was going to work, was so pivotal to the design process. You know, you didn't just kind of create this spectacle and then say, okay, how are we going to sort of make sure that this sort of works in harmony? It feels like there were so many ideas, you know, things from sort of artificial reef to this idea of how you're sort of sourcing food for the kitchen. You know, how do you kind of allow these ideas, you know, the kind of way that you want the building to work to really feed into that design process?
Again, that's an echo again here. The building itself is living its own life. It's, as Rune told her previously, it has a rough surface, so the kelp and the gels and everything can attach to it. We also have a focus on the storytelling for our guests to increase the curiosity and knowledge. I think is the most important thing for maintaining sustainability. For the fish life, it's outside, which is quite important for many people. We decided very early in the process not to do anything or not to interact except using lights in the evenings. The lights attracts fish. No, it attracts plankton and small living things, which is the main feed for the fishes. So some days are plastic, has a rather large skulls, some large fishes, but some days are not. So some days are more rather foggy. But the story we try to tell when it's where there's poor visibility, we tell the story that poor visibility isn't for visibility, because this is plankton, most of it. And plankton is the way, or is the reason why we breathe. It absorbs about 40% of the world's carbon dioxide. So there's a story to tell, to have a focus on the smallest thing up to the biggest thing. That's everything connects. That's part of our soul and the way we live.
What would you say have been your kind of biggest learnings from this project? Like, I imagine it's been an incredible journey in terms of learning about how to kind of be in resonance with your environment.
Yes.
What would you say you've learned?
One more again. Sorry.
What would you think? What did you say have been your biggest learnings from this project?
It's been huge learnings in every aspect, I think, regarding the people working here and the international society, which is the most important thing in everyday living, is the people working there. Of course, the guests as well. We need them to have them. But that's the passion they share and use for using resources. I think that is also one of the things with the fine dining, and especially the Nordic cuisine, is that we focus on what is in our local area and use the resources in a good way. So I think the kitchen and the fine dining should be a learning point for the consumers eventually, for using more of the diversity and not using the mass production. The other thing of the learning ways, of course, the construction and architecture has been it's been fantastic. Using different areas for example, the marine and offshore knowledge, which is huge in Norway, combining this with normal entrepreneurs, combining this with marine biologists, combining it with a fantastic architect firm and Snøhetta. And these things combined has been the most learning way, I think. In a good way.
And another question, and this maybe is a question maybe slightly more for Runa as well, but how much of this project was the sort of element of experimentation? If you think, like, I mean, the artificial reef, for instance, like, how did you know that was going to, how well that was going to work? Was it a little bit of kind of testing and just having, just saying this is something we think could be great, let's just see if it has an impact? Or was it very sort of severely tested and something you're really confident about?
Shall I answer on that? I think we really believe that the concrete itself will act like a stone, like a rock, because we already have a lot of structure doing so in Norway. So we know that this will over time blend into the nature. So to use concrete was very natural, actually, both because of we wanted to blend in, but also because of the strength of the concrete. There's not many other materials I think we could have used for doing so. So I think that's very important, that we also did a lot of tests for using the shape, also for shaping the building. We have a lot of wave tests, for example, and also animations that show what happens when we have these great waves, these big waves that running over the building with not destroying the buildings. That was a part of the design, how to do this. So that's, you can easily see that in the shape of the building, how it's curved, and how it's also the waves actually, when there's a storm going on, you can see it just hit the building and just the forces is in a way destroy. You can see it doesn't do any harm on the building itself. So that was a very interesting to have this kind of experience on board, that people that are doing a lot of concrete construction out in the North Sea could use the same experience for building this kind of building on the land. So I think that was very, very useful. But also, as Stig mentioned, that we have a lot of tunnels in Norway. And one of the concerns was what happens if there is any leakage in the building. So how we do the same technique that we are doing in the tunnels to have membranes, and how to have pumps that actually can take away, and how to ventilate this if there should be any leakage in this building, which actually there is not a problem now, but we can take care of it if that happens.
It's interesting as well, isn't it? I mean, obviously concrete is a material that is coming under fire a lot in terms of sustainability. So the idea of thinking about a way that concrete can give back to its environment, have a positive impact, is obviously something we should be considering, right?
Yeah. I also just want to mention something you asked Stig about is the tourism thing, and I think to reach under restaurant is very off-piste. You don't reach this destination just by passing by. You really want to go there to know about this, and I think this is unique with this project. There is many similar destinations around the world, but it's for people that love food and also to have a very special architectural experience. So this is a unique place that people really must know about and want to go to. You just don't pass by accident. So I think it's also important to know that this make also this the atmosphere and to visit is very special and unique. So I think I'm very glad there's not a mass tourism place, to say it.
And on this topic of tourism, maybe I'll move across to David to talk a little bit about Soria Moria, because obviously this is a project that was initially designed to kind of promote tourism, but ended up having all these other positive impacts. I'd love to hear from you, David, about what you thought it was about this project that led to it being so treasured by the community.
Yeah, I think, no, you're right, it did sort of start out as like a tourism boosting exercise. And I think maybe one of the things that sort of led to it also being accepted or sort of treasured by the local community is kind of the sort of low threshold approach to it. It's quite a low scale building. It's not a massive building. It's not a big budget. All these things we talked about. So it's sort of for people. It's not exclusive. It's sort of neighbors are quite an exclusive hotel, which is right up the road, but it's managed to kind of get this this feel of being a low threshold activity or a place to meet. So I think that's what has been really exciting about it. At the same time, it's sort of, been posted around the world, not to the same extent as Under, but it's sort of gone its round on the internet and all of this, but still it's sort of managed to find that balance, I think, between the local community enjoying it and also like tourists coming to visit and to see a place in a new way.
Do you think this project kind of sorry, I don't have the details to hand, but when did the building open? I'm guessing it sort of has been around pandemic time as well.
I think it was 2019. I think so, just before they had a little stretch before everything kicked off. So, but it's also, I mean, with Norway sort of managing fairly well in the pandemic, it's been used throughout the pandemic to a certain extent. So I think it's actually been quite a bit of a relief for people to have somewhere like that to meet up, and people that wouldn't maybe necessarily meet otherwise. I think we touched upon it in the clip earlier that it's sort of, we tried to sort of create a place where that you can kind of meet when people that you wouldn't necessarily meet otherwise.
Do you think part of the success of this project is kind of down to would be things that are kind of intrinsic to kind of Norwegian values, this idea of sort of social equity and kind of the importance of spending time in nature? Do you think that was kind of quite critical here?
Yeah, I think often in Norway, I think there's so much incredible sort of beauty and incredible nature that you sometimes almost forget that you have it around you all the time. I think especially for locals, that can happen. So I think sometimes sort of adding something to kind of highlight it in a way is quite useful. One thing is for tourists, but also for the locals, that area where it was built, the sauna, it wasn't actually that much used before the sauna was there. It was kind of a little bit inaccessible, but it was this amazing site, you know. So, and then we added something, didn't cost that much really, and we just added that little element and just kind of made people open their eyes, I suppose, in a different way.
I think this project kind of can serve, I mean, the fact that it's kind of, you know, it's such a sort of small intervention that's had this big impact. Do you think this is sort of something that maybe could inspire people in other places to think, like, you know, what they could do, you know, in their towns in order to kind of bring about some, you know, change?
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's a bit of a trend already in that sense in Norway. These sort of small acupunctural approaches to design that sort of highlight the qualities that are already there, but that people have forgotten about a little bit, maybe. So I think, yeah, there's loads of little saunas popping up and lookout points, and this sort of architecture that doesn't take over, I suppose, sort of lives with the nature rather than takes the focus away from it. Yeah.
And then I'm conscious of time here, so let's hear from Helle and Torstein about Legacy of the Fjords, which is another project that sort of really bringing people into nature without kind of having an impact on it, having a positive impact on it. Helle, maybe you can sort of start by sort of telling us a little bit more about what led you to kind of commission this project, you know, to start with. Obviously you have there's Legacy of the Fjords, and you have 2 other boats with a similar design as well, but what made you think, right, we're gonna design a new boat, but we really want these sort of principles of universal design to not just to be a sort of tick box exercise, but to really kind of drive the design? Oh, hello. What was it about, you know, what led you to kind of embark on this project?
I think that we're talking about tourism here, and if you are going to continue working with tourists, and Norway is a very attractive country to come to and to see, and everyone wants to see the fjords. And at least if you're going to do that, you have to do it in a decent way, and you have to do it in a way that you don't disturb the nature. And traditionally, it has been older ferries that hasn't sort of made any justice to the nature, or haven't been a good place for people to be either. And if you're gonna, first of all, invest so much money, you have to make sure that it's accessible for everyone, and to start then with a universal design and make it accessible for everyone, but also don't disturb the nature around you. I think that was our sort of first thought, that if we're going to continue in this business, and if we're going to show the fantastic nature we have in Norway, which is basically free, at least let's do it in a very sustainable way, and cater to all kinds of people.
Because obviously that's critical, isn't it? So the sustainability isn't just about environment, it's also about people, it's about social sustainability, it's also about businesses. You know, we don't want to sort of save the environment, but to destroy local businesses. But obviously, like you say, this was a significant investment, but something that's really paid off, and ultimately, and you've ended up with something that's better and available to a bigger audience. So it's been good for business as well, right?
And I think, like, you can't stop, a pandemic stopped people from coming to Norway, but I think that hopefully will come back. And if you're going to work in the tourist industry, at least do it in a way that is sustainable. And of course, I think it's fantastic that we can show this beautiful nature that we have to everyone. But like I said, we couldn't continue the way we did, and we had to make it more sustainable. But also then to be able to make it emission free. There is rules and regulations, and there's coming even more stricter rules and regulations. And so we had to do something about that. And then having a designer that created this for us, that was so unique, that is also been very people around the world been noticing, and we got lots of prizes for the first and the second vessel as well. And I think, but to make it accessible when you're first going to be in the tourist industry, at least make it the best way you can to conserve the nature, and so it's going to be available for everyone else for a long time.
And Torstein, I mean, obviously, like coming up with the concept for this boat must have been a challenge. But once you sort of had this design and you worked out how you're going to make it work, you know, how difficult was it really to kind of then just basically change the design to make it universal and accessible to all?
I think what was key with this project was that we started from scratch, and the Fjords wanted something new and were very clear about their goals in terms of sustainability and design and universal design. And so also at Brødrene Aa, I think we have an openness to new ideas. So I think it was important that internally at the shipyard we were open to trying new concepts. So yeah, I think that's how we came up with this project. And obviously we experimented with a lot of ideas, and yeah, that's how we found the shape and the concept.
And I mean, as a company, you've had a lot, you know, you've built a lot of fast ferries and you have a lot of experience in this field, but obviously doing this, which is like something very different. Do you find this project's kind of changed your thinking a little bit about, you know, other boats that you produce? You know, like there must be some ideas here that can be kind of universally applicable, right? Yeah,
I think in a lot of industries and also in shipbuilding, you think that boats are supposed to look a certain way, and it's a reason that they look that way. But what we saw here was that maybe there are still other concepts to be explored. So what we see now is we get contacted by a lot of our existing customers and new customers that want to see if they can go in some new direction in terms of design. So yeah, I think it opened our eyes and also it opened the eyes of others in the sightseeing business. And yeah.
And I guess this is a question to both of you really. Do you see this project having an impact at a global scale? Do you think we're going to see a completely new type of tourist, of sightseeing boats start to crop up in other places as well? Do you think this is a design that is still kind of rooted in Norway?
We've been contacted by we've been run by lots of people also that wanted this project. First of all, because it's fully electric, it's no noise, it's no emission, but it's also a very, very good design. And I think that more and more people, if they're not going to do exactly the same, but at least thinking more about how they conserve the nature, and at the same time they can show it off. And yeah, we've been together around and got lots of interest to see. So I think that this is more the future for the tourist industry as well, and think in the same way. And I think the tourist industry needs to think in this way, that it has to be both sustainable and good for passengers and nature.
Absolutely right. I was hoping to come back to Alice now. Alice, is Alice still there? Possibly.
Yeah.
Hi, Alice. And so obviously kind of, you know, going through these projects and sort of talking to these people again, do you think, you know, Norway is not, like you said before, Norway is one of those countries that's really leading the way. What more can we do to kind of promote these projects and these ideas, you know, worldwide? And, you know, do you think, I guess it's about creating models that are applicable elsewhere?
Yeah, exactly. I think, every country and location is different, but there are principles that you apply in general, whether it is the kind of the sustainability of a project, or, I think there's what people have touched on also shows the kind of health and well-being aspect that lots of projects like this bring to life. So I also think there's something in how do you communicate how something is much more than what it might appear to be on paper. And I think that's what you might look at the goals and think there's 17 goals, 189 targets. That's a lot, but part of that is because they're designed to reflect the kind of complexity and the interconnectedness of the world that we live in. So I think tangible projects and examples like this are so important in terms of showing that there's lots of different work within the UN. I know every single July, which we're coming up to now, countries kind of go and do their voluntary national review, and a lot of those are done in partnerships with businesses or different organizations to show actually in their countries what they've done. And I think Norway does a great job internationally in terms of supporting other countries, but it also does at home. So I think kind of using for like that and this to showcase some of these examples is really important to bring the SDGs to life.
Amazing. I think we're coming to the end of our time, so I think maybe what might be quite nice is to just have a sort of final question, and I don't know how easy this is going to be to sort of shoot it around to everyone, all of our speakers. We'll see how this goes, but I mean, we're sort of as Alice saying, it's like this idea that sustainable design goals really are the ultimate design brief. They're kind of present in all these projects that we've been looking at today. So I guess the real kind of question is like, where do we go from here? How can we accelerate our progress and move forward? So maybe if I can go around to everyone in turn, maybe you can just, I guess, suggest one action or one kind of learning that you've kind of taken away from, whether it's the project you worked on or what we've been discussing today, a kind of positive message for kind of moving forward with this kind of sustainable and inclusive design approach. Who am I going to target first? Let's start with Stig. Is he still there? All right, hi. So one positive action or message kind of going forward.
For passing forward, I think passing forward for the project, or for my learning in this project, it's
for all of us, I
think telling stories for our guests and showing them more that our view of the nature is something most of our guests appreciates to hear, and they wish to have further knowledge about this. Yes, that was it.
Great. Runa?
Yeah, I have quickly to say that in Snøhetta we are very focused on this sustainable building. We are doing all these powerhouses you maybe have heard about, where the building actually are using less energy. They are producing energy during a 60 years period. Mm-hmm. And can I just share one screen with you? Do I have time for this?
Yeah, go for it. Go on.
Yeah, because
we're only a couple minutes late.
It's very into what we are discussing today, because here you can see one of the powerhouses which is not built yet, but this is a hotel. This is the first hotel that is actually a powerhouse built in Svartis, where we have a glacier here. And what we actually discussed when we're doing this also was to use electrical boats for reaching this, because this is off-piste and there's no way to go there but by boat. So this is very linked into what we have seen today, also by this fantastic electrical boat that could also fit into this design somehow. So I just want to show you this, because this is a hotel and it's carbon neutral, and it should produce more energy than it's used during a 60 years period of time. So I just want to mention that this is what we're into now. So every houses we are building now has this focus now, both with the old buildings that we have to refund to fix it, and also all new buildings. So we are very focused on this now, I have to say. So,
I'm not sure if anyone could see the image, but I recommend everyone to check out Snøhetta's website later to find out all the work they're doing about in sort of powerhouse architecture. It's definitely something to follow on from here. David, a sort of final message, or sort of action point or learning sort of going forward from here?
I suppose maybe it's about thinking about sustainability and seeing that there's like a spectrum to it. It's not just one thing. It's not just about sort of high-tech sustainability. I mean, it's amazing the stuff that Runa's talking about. The powerhouse movement and all of this is really great and really important. But maybe there's also, you know, there are other aspects of sustainability as well. So like the sociable sort of side of sustainability is equally really important, and maybe sometimes a little bit forgotten about, because it tends to sort of, the focus tends to be drawn against towards the sort of technological side of it. So I guess it's maybe about finding that right balance, maybe between the different, or the whole spectrum of sustainability.
Great message. Helle, do you have a sort of a final note, final message or action?
I think, first of all, the tourist industry is going to grow, hopefully, especially, and come back after the pandemic. And I think it's an important industry, and there's lots of people work in the industry and are dependent upon it. And if we're going to continue, and even our boat takes 400 passengers, which probably sounds like a lot of people, but let's at least make it sustainable and make sure that we keep this fantastic nature we have for the future, and not necessarily build the same boats as we have done, but at least make them emission free. And in a way, we're kind of lucky because we're so restricted of sailing in different areas in Norway. But whatever we do on land or shore or at sea, that we do it in a sustainable way, so we can continue the tourist industry for the future as well.
Great. And Torstein, anything to add?
Yeah, I just think these projects, they show that if you're willing to try to make something truly sustainable for the future, you will maybe get a lot of attention for it. And I think the people that start this type of project, as long as they are very clear that they want something unique and sustainable, I think, and challenge the designers and architects, they will get something back for it. Yeah.
A great end note. Thank you so much. That's a fantastic point. I think that's all we have time for today. So I just kind of wanted to say thank you to everyone for tuning in. I mean, I hope that we've kind of really shown today the power of inclusive design and sustainable design, and how it can impact people's lives. And I hope everyone sort of leaves today feeling very inspired by what they've seen. I just want to say also thank you so much to Doga, to the Royal Norwegian Embassy in London, and to the London Design Biennale for making today's event possible. And have a great day. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.